Tonight, JuJu Watkins receives the official John Award Trophy.
Let's talk USC women basketball.
Welcome to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. College basketball season, it's underway. Yeah. We're actually talking about a game. We're not speculating. It's not in the off-season anymore. USC women's basketball analyst CC Clay of the USC Women's Basketball Media Lab was at the Galen Center covering USC game one, a comfortable win over New Mexico State. Lot to get into, so let's just get your initial impressions on the board, and we'll go from there, CC.
Yeah, first of all, shout out to JuJu, who was recognized last night for the Naismith Award. It was a beautiful thing to see. So shout her out, congratulations. And yeah, it was kind of interesting seeing her on the bench supporting her team instead of on the court last night. So that was one thing that I noticed. That was totally different. But overall, look, this was USC's first game. They haven't had any exhibition games. They've had a couple secret scrimmages that were controlled, so they weren't real games. So in my opinion, they showed what they showed. I mean, they beat this team by 40 points. This is a different USC team than what we had last year, especially in the front court. And I think that one of the things that we have to do as fans, okay, I'm speaking as a fan first, is get out of our own way. I think people tend to do comparisons, right? And this is not last year's team. We don't have Kiki, we don't have Rhea, we don't have Clarice. And people, I think, tend to think, oh, well, if we don't have them, our front court is not going to work. And I think that we need to stop thinking that way. Lindsay is a rebuilder. Every team that she's had since she's been here has been a different team. Every team has been a different team. Whether it's win by committee, whether it's a go-to player, whether it's the front court, every team that she's had since she's been here has been a different team. And I think we do a disservice to USC women's basketball as a whole by trying to be critical or analyze every team as they should, as if they should be the same. So I think that we need to get out of our own way and really look at this team for the good things that it showcased last night and focus on that.
Yeah, so let's unpack that because, in sports talk, you and I deal in sports commentary regularly. Comparisons are a natural part of this, but I think what you're getting at is expecting teams to kind of be the same in terms of their identity, their characteristics, and that's the difference, right? That the Destiny Littleton team, the Ivies, last season's team with the high-end transfers coming in, like the pieces of the puzzle change so dramatically that not only should fans not expect USC to play the same way, but Lindsey Gottlieb can't manage the team the same way. Each season's team is a unique organism. That seems to be part of it. So, what I guess the helpful part of this is what for fans can be like the main way to really grasp that this team has to play in an appreciably different way from last season's team, so that we already get a sense of the identity, the character, the way to win games, while having some kind of base obvious commonalities with past teams. The way that manifests is going to be very, very different on the court.
I think if you look at last year's team, depth was an issue. I think with this year's team, what you're going to see differently is a stronger guard core, a lot of depth on this team. I think they went 11 deep yesterday, all with valuable minutes, and I think that the difference, the one thing that I noticed, and I asked Lindsay about this in the press conference, was I noticed that they played a lot of zone, or they were trying to play a lot of zone last night, whereas in previous teams, we never saw them play a lot of zone. And I think that that's changing the identity because of who we have on that team and the mix on that team. I think also the pace of play is going to get a lot faster. And I think you're going to see more gritty, defensive-minded team like they usually are as we get further down the season. But I think that the one thing that you can look at is the depth. The depth of this team that was showcased last night is really, really deep.
Let's just talk about zone defense. I mean, is that just basically an acknowledgement that you don't have Rhea Marshall, you don't have Clarice, and that you don't want to be in a situation where you have one-on-one in the low post, and that you need that zone configuration to perhaps confuse opponents, throw them a little bit off balance, and get situations where you're not in an unfavorable one-on-one matchup versus a tall post player. Is that basically the rationale, or is it something a little bit different or beyond that?
Yeah, I think it has to do with the personnel in the game. You know what I mean? Who's in the game, and it has to do with the front court and our size. While we do have size, the post depth isn't like strong, heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so
Thick.
yeah, Kiki was a strong defensive player. Rhea was a strong defensive player. By the time she got to her senior year, we don't have that this year. So I think that using a zone to stretch some teams out offensively, and then by committee, defending the paint is going to be key for us. Sorry,
Yeah,
my
I mean,
mind's going three
yeah,
different thousand directions.
so like, just to kind of put it out there, like, this is not a powerful team. And when I say powerful, I'm talking about brute strength. I'm not saying like, like Jazzy Davis and Kennedy Smith. They're powerful in the sense of dynamic, versatile, can do a lot of different things well. I'm talking about brawn, just, muscle. Like Rhea and
Hmm.
Clarice, that was muscle. That was
Yeah.
grown woman strength near the basket, and this team does not have power. And when you don't have power in that brute muscular sense, using a zone where, if you can be light on your feet and you can dance around and hedge and make quick movements in areas, like that is a way to counterbalance a lack of brawn
Yeah.
in the low post near the low block.
I think when you talk about, our front court and defending by committee, I mean, Lindsay talked about it in a press conference. You see for yourself.
We have a post group that is going to be by committee. It just is. We got a lot of different people. They're all going to.
So there you have it. She's talking about how, the front court is going to be playing by committee. And I think in a sense it means, who's during the game, who's going to show the most effort, who is playing well against key matchups. And I think that's going to determine who's going to be on the floor more with regards to our front court. So but last night they all got even minutes. So it's just, it's really interesting to see how this is going to unfold. But I just think I want to talk about the front court for a minute, because when you talk about the front court, which everybody seems to be worried about, I just want to do some comparisons right now. We've played one game with no exhibition games, so on and so forth. When you look at a team like South Carolina's played 3 games. They have a notable front court, and Don Staley is big on playing inside out. Their front court this year consists of Okot, Edwards, Miriam Doda, and Adele Tack, right? These are big players. The smallest one is Joyce Edwards. She's like 6'3". When you compare like what we did in the front court compared to what they did in the front court, I'm asking you guys to go look at the stats. You know what I mean? Because offensive rebounds, I'll pull it up for you. Rebounding's total just for that game, we were in the 90th percentile. in the 90th percentile. Offensive rebounds, which a lot of this had to do with Kara Dunn because she was just phenomenal last night. But offensive rebounds, we got 20 offensive rebounds last night, and that put us in the 90th percentile. When you look at South Carolina against like a like team, Grand Canyon, right? A like team, that they should have out rebounded easily. I'm looking at it right here. They got a total of 5 offensive rebounds, which put them in the 6th percentile, like at the bottom with all 4 of their bigs. So, I mean, I'm just trying to put things in perspective so everybody can just relax. You know what I mean? It's you got to look at the analytics behind it. And just like Lindsay said, we're going to be playing by committee. And when you look at things like that, when you do comparisons, South Carolina is a good team. And when you do comparisons like that, it puts things in perspective for me. Like, okay, let's not go overboard with this.
So, you mentioned, playing by committee, and you've mentioned Lindsay Gottlieb talking about that. So let's dive into this. That USC, to put a finer numerical point on this, 11 players playing at least 8 minutes, 9 players playing at least 10 minutes. Now, I would certainly think that because the team did not have exhibition games, like might be surprised that the USC women didn't have an exhibition game leading up to the season. So it was paramount to get lots of players in no matter what, like not just as preparation for NC State this upcoming Sunday, but just on its own terms, that, the coaching staff needed to see players on the court. So when we consider, no one played more than 30 minutes, only one player, Jazzy, played more than 27 minutes. So this was a wide and relatively even distribution of minutes. And so I think a question a lot of fans have, CC, is this just giving NC State's coaching staff a lot of things to look at, or is it more about just, no, the coaches just needed to see players, they needed to see combinations, they needed to see different alignments and styles so that they just have more information to use going into the rest of the season?
Yeah, because you can best believe after that game, Lindsay and Nikki and the entire coaching staff went home and looked at film, right? And as far as North Carolina State, I mean, what are they going to look at? I hope they look at it because Jazzy Davidson didn't play well offensively, and she still got 14 points and 5 assists, and you know what I mean? She still had a pretty decent game once she settled in. Kennedy Smith didn't shoot the ball well. Jazzy and Kennedy together went a total of 6 for 26 shooting. And so those are 2 of our best shooters. So if you take them out the mix, if they were playing well, we would beat New Mexico State by probably 60, 70 points.
Yep.
40, we beat them by 40 with them shooting bad. And Kara Dunn got 12 points, but she only took 2 shots. Yeah, North Carolina State, look at that film.
In terms of lineup combinations that you did see in this game, was there a particular combination or a particular alignment style that you thought got a little bit more mileage than others? From looking at how different. Okay.
No, I just think that last night had a lot to do with looking at different combinations and see who was working and who wasn't, and who was playing well, who wasn't. I mean, I'm sure she's really looking at the front court, especially with Gerda and Kai, Laura, and Viv to see, who's going to fit with who the best, but there was, most of it was a 4-guard lineup, and which I said at the beginning of the season, we're going to go with a 4-guard lineup.
Yeah, and the guards were getting the lion's share of the minutes, wide distribution, but the minutes were skewed toward the guards, and that's just going to be necessity most of the time for this USC team and for Lindsay Gottlieb. Now, my Trojans Wire colleague, going to feature Trojans Wire here for a little bit. My Trojans Wire colleague Ethan Inman was at the game and was at the press conference, and he asked Lindsay Gottlieb about Viv Iwuchukwu starting. And obviously, what happens in game 1, you can't necessarily say, well, this is the template or this is the modus operandi for the rest of the season. It's just game 1. It's like where USC is now. And this team's going to undergo a lot of evolution and change and development over the course of the season. But it's still noteworthy that on opening night, Viv Iwuchukwu did get the start. Ethan asked Gottlieb about this. Do you read anything particular into Vivi Uchukwu getting the starting nod in this game? Is it some kind of signifier? Does it carry any extra element of importance or relevance for this team?
Well, I'll run the tape again of what Lindsay said about this, and we can run that right here.
Yeah, Viv had a terrific off season. Just a lot of work, last year, she actually got diagnosed with an injury the day she arrived as a freshman and had like her medical intake and had a surgery in the summer. So she didn't get a summer. In addition to that, we had 2 WNBA players and a 6'6" post kind of in front of her. And so there was a lot of learning. And I think she embraced all of that and then had an off season and had a summer, and she has put the work in. And I think we've seen her, Viv has continually gotten better every day. I think she's tried to really be good at what she's good at and then add things. And so, yeah, we're definitely going to rely on her tremendous athleticism, her rebounding, her physicality, just a ton of things that she brings to the table.
Now, to follow up on what Lindsay said, again, it's going to be a, win by committee. There's going to be different, who knows who's going to start on what night. Diana Mendez is another player that shined last night, and she got a lot of minutes. Diana Mendez, she played 18 minutes. When you look at all the other players, as far as the posts are concerned, she got the most post minutes out of all of them. So, who knows what's going to happen. But again, it's by committee, and Lindsay has been talking about that in every press conference she's talking about how the front court is going to be by committee.
One of the things that was so noticeable about last season's team is that, there was a clear star presence on that USC roster with, JuJu, of course, number one, but then Kennedy Smith, Kiki Iriafen, Rhea, top tier players, all of them. Kiki and Rhea both getting picked in the WNBA draft, and of course JuJu, top player in college basketball. And so, obviously with Kennedy and Jazzy, you do have star presence, but it does seem as though, we talked about the dynamic of, making sure that JuJu stays happy, JuJu stays well fed, that she's able to, play the minutes and get the statistics that a lot of people want to see, and like the commercial pressures surrounding that, with her NIL and endorsement deals. With this season's team, could be a really positive dynamic. Not that you don't want JuJu Watkins, of course that you do, but there could be a real new dynamic with this team, Cece, in terms of no one cares who starts. You might start, but then maybe someone comes in midway through the game, proves to be effective, and plays more minutes, and you get these very even minutes distributions over the course of the season. It could create a really harmonious locker room where, start, come off the bench, I play 15 minutes one night, I play 25 minutes the next. It's all kind of spread around where no one is really caring who gets the credit, just as long as, okay, let's just ride the hot lineup or the right rotation, whatever helps the team win. That could be a really positive factor for USC this season.
I think you saw it last night, right? Malia Samuels got the start, and London Jones came off the bench, and she was the leading scorer off the bench. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I love about London, and I talked about this before, is that when she was at UCLA, she was mainly a catch and three shooter. They would put her in positions to catch the ball and shoot. You very rarely saw her take the ball off the dribble. Whereas now in the offense that Lindsay runs for a guard-heavy team or a guard core team, you saw London not being afraid to take the ball in the paint. She didn't care who was in there and be able to finagle her body to where she could make the shot. And I don't think players expect her to do that. And so when she does it, it catches everybody off guard. And I think London Jones is going to be a surprise. That's another player that I talked about. I think that she's going to be a surprise player for this team because you're going to see her doing things that you didn't see her do at UCLA, and I think if we continue to put her in positions that feed what she's able to do as a player, that she'll get more comfortable and she'll be able to shine. So the other person I want to talk about, if you don't mind, is Kara Dunn, because as you know, in every podcast that we've had, I always say, you guys are sleeping on Cara Dunn. You guys not acknowledging this young lady is going to be to the detriment of all the journalists and analysts that don't acknowledge her. And I think last night, even though, I mean, she didn't even, like I said, she took 2 shots, right? So she didn't even showcase what she can do at the 3-point line, which is shooting 35% from the 3-point line. She didn't even showcase how she can actively create her own offense and go. But what she did showcase is her will to get the ball. You know what I mean? And she is a strong player offensively. And I tweeted this out. I was like, I've been impressed with Cara Dunn since Lindsay's got her, and I've been able to, review her stats and really go back and watch her game film at Georgia Tech. But being able to be there and watch this young lady play in person, the way she moves, the way she carries herself, the way she goes to get the ball is just, I mean, she's a pro. I'm telling you, she's a pro. And she's going to get better too in this offense. And part of the challenge with this team, again, is they need to get comfortable with each other, and they need to get comfortable playing ball again. You know what I mean? Because they haven't played. This was their first game. So I would say I'm not worried about it. By March, you'll see what Lindsay have done. Just like it's the same thing. When the Ivies came over and played with JuJu, that first game that they played in Las Vegas at Ohio State, JuJu scored 32 points. But that team looked nothing like they did by the time they made it to the NCAA play. Nothing. Right? Everybody was throwing the ball to JuJu in that Ohio State game, but by the time the Pac-12 championships got around, Mackenzie Forbes won the MVP of that. It was a totally different team. So again, I just need everybody to just relax, calm it down, and stop nitpicking at all the things you think is wrong and let them build.
Yeah, I mean, this team is going to do a lot of learning, and I think part of scheduling all these tough games, and by the way, folks, we're going to do a separate standalone show on NC State. Don't worry about that. This is more of the New Mexico State review, impressions of opening night, but CC and I will give you a separate show on NC State. But just to kind of mention briefly, like Lindsay Gottlieb's loading up on tough teams to make sure that this team gets tested so that when you get to the Big Ten schedule, when you get to, the new year after Christmas, that a lot of learning and growth will occur, and USC will be ready for that Big Ten slog, that gauntlet in the middle of winter. And so on the other side of all these growing pains, you're going to have a team that's going to be battle tested and hardened going into March Madness. That's part of the point.
Yeah, and I just want to mention one more thing about Cara Dunn. One thing that Lindsay did say, because I did ask the question about Cara Dunn. I mean, she got 8 rebounds last night, and 6 of them were offensive rebounds. She was just phenomenal. But I asked Lindsay about Cara Dunn, and the one thing that she said was when they were looking to bring a player in, they were looking at advanced analytics. So people don't understand, people need, analytics plays a key role. They knew what they were looking for, and they use advanced analytics to go out and get it. So she said that she's not surprised that Cara Dunn is doing this, and that in practice, they play against male players, so it's hard. They're pushing her to really fight for position and things like that, and it was good to see her showcase that in a real game.
All right, we spent a long off season looking at different players. You've been doing videos, film breakdowns of a lot of USC's players from opening night. In addition to players you've already talked about, anyone else really jump off the screen either in a positive way or in terms of just, whoa, now like this is a clear thing that she can work on. Anything that either differentiated, deviated from your scouting report, or which really, really nailed your scouting report or affirmed it from opening night for other USC players?
I just think Deanna Mendez is another one that surprised me. She went in there and hit two 3-pointers like it was nothing, and if you look at her stats from Washington State, she wasn't a good 3-point shooter. So either she's been working on it or she just happened to have a good night. I don't know. But I think Gerda has to get used to American ball. She's an international player, so she has to get used to to American ball. And I just think that, the communication is going to get better within that. And again, London surprised me. I was surprised. I mean, for her being that small to take the ball. Now I knew she could do it because that's what
Yeah.
Coach Nikki Blue and I talked about, but she showed it last night.
No, I mean you were very clear in the offseason saying London Jones is not going to be that pigeonholed player shoehorned into one role, one style of play, as was the case at UCLA. We're going to see the dimensions of her game blossom. That was a constant talking point for you in the offseason and absolutely validated in that opening game against New Mexico State. All
I
right,
do,
so
I
go
do
ahead.
want to see them. Defensively, they're still trying to figure out Beth Burns' system, and you saw some holes there. But I'm not worried about that like it's game one. So I'm not want to talk about all the things that they need to work on, because I think as a collective, we all know that every team in the NCAA at this point has things that they need to work on. I'm just really happy to see what they can be, what they can possibly come in the future by March. The talent on this team is really, really good. It's just putting it all together and making it work in a way that's viable, that's going to get them to the next level.
One statistic that where you thought USC really hit a home run, really, like if this team can be at this level numerically, statistically, on a consistent basis, it's going to be in really good shape. And give us one statistic where, oh, this was well below the target, and this is where we need to see some tangible improvement heading into the North Carolina State game. So one choice statistic that where USC really hit the target and where USC fell well short of the target, just to give our viewers and listeners some context on how this journey evolves for the
Yeah,
Trojans this season.
I would say, one thing that really surprised me with all the substitutions that Lindsay did last night was their turnover percentage was really low. Like, they didn't turn the ball over. They had 10 turnovers the whole game. And I just thought there would be more because of the chemistry not being there. So that's only going to get better, I would think, and so that put them in the 90th percentile as far as turnover percentage, which is really, really good. One place that they need to fix, obviously, I think everybody would agree, would be percentage points in the paint. Now, are we ever going to get there? I don't know, because of the front court that we have, and we're such a guard-heavy team. Does that mean that we cut more and we drive more to the paint and do some stuff there? I don't know, but what that was really interesting to me is, the offense that they run had Kennedy posting up, had Jazzy posting up. Everybody was posting up. It wasn't just the front court that was posting up. All the players were playing down low on the post. So that was really interesting to me. But I want to see if they can get that up at least, some percentage points. Because right now, they had 34% of their shots came from in the paint, and that put them in the 18th percentile. So it put them in the red. So they need to get that up a little bit more. And I want to see how Lindsay addresses that, if at all, or if we just remain guard core heavy.
All right. So we've talked about the offense. Now we have to talk about the defense. What did you see in terms of the defensive tactics, movements, how players rotated, communicated, and worked as, a 5-as-1 on defense? What were your initial impressions of the continuity and cohesion of this USC group?
Work in progress. I think there was some good points. I mean, look, they got 11 steals last night, and they got 4 blocks. Defensive rebounds, they got 29 defensive rebounds. So, I mean, defensively, they were solid. Their defensive rating was a 66.4, and they were in the 86th percentile, which is in the green. So I'm sure they want to get that up to around a 90, and I think they will as time goes on. I think some of the things that they have to fix, again, which they've always had problems with, even last year, was the dribble drive. They seem to have problems with the dribble drive, and then the help side coming over to help once the dribbler goes into the key. So that's an area that they need to fix. And then just, again, knowing each other, understanding each other, and understanding the positioning on defense. And that's going to take time. Knowing when to come over, knowing not to come over, knowing when to help side, knowing when not to help side, knowing when to switch, knowing when not to switch. Those things have to come as you build chemistry. But for the most part, last night, they had a decent showing. I mean, If they would have came in at 70 percentile in defense, then that would have been a whole different conversation. But for their first game, there's going to be some holes, and there definitely were. But look, they only held the team to what?
48.
48 points.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
But notably, and this is not even a criticism, it's just looking at a box score and trying to gain meaning from it, or not overreact to it. One New Mexico State player scored 27 of those 48 points. Do you think that means anything in terms of revealing anything? Like, were the 27 points being scored in the same way most of the time, or was it coming from a variety of different ways?
a variety of different ways. But interesting enough, in my pregame, when I wrote my article, Yanez, who scored the 27 points, was one of the players I said they had to watch.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, without even, just looking at analytics, I'm like, they got, she was their leading blocker. So I said that on defensively, she was going to have to be the one to watch, but watch her, right? And she ended up being the offensive person. But, if she gets 27 points and nobody else scores, okay. I don't know what
yeah.
the game plan was. Maybe the game plan was, hey, let her get hers and we'll,
Get her. Yes, that's right.
yeah,
That's why it's not a criticism, because that's
yeah,
often a strategy. You let the one star get hers, but you shut off the faucet for everyone
yeah.
else. That's often a winning game plan.
But I think too, they miss they miss some things. Like, she would get the ball at the 3-point line and they were too slow closing out. You know what I mean? So she would get that shot off and make it. So just things like that. Sometimes she was aggressive to the basket more so. The defenders taking their eye off of her, which they shouldn't, especially if they know that she's a scorer. So I just think, again, it's a process of learning the Beth Burns defense and process of understanding your positioning, where you're supposed to be when certain things happen. And that's just a timing thing.
Yep, and timing evolves with time. One of the great core truths of any team, any season, any sport. We're just getting started with this USC women's basketball season. All right, so Cece, final thoughts, like anything else we didn't yet mention that you want to make sure to mention, plus what you have going on at your USC women's basketball media lab, your Substack, and your other media involvements and activities.
Yeah, I would just ask you guys to, relax. It's just the first game. Just relax. Let's have some fun. Look at all the good things this team is doing and look at all the good things this team will do in the future. It's a totally new team. It's not last year's team. It's not the year before's team. It's not the year before that's team. It's a totally different year, and this team is going to have its own identity. So focus on the good things that this team is doing and let Lindsay worry about getting the other things that the team needs to do. She'll get them there. So relax. They still won by 40 points. It's all good. And I would say, hey, North Carolina State. Now, I will say some things about North Carolina State. I know we'll get into that, but just moving forward with a lot of games, USC has a tough schedule. Again, do not expect this team to be like last year's team. I expect this team to lose some games. Not saying that they're going to lose to North Carolina State, but I expect this team to lose some games before we get into Big Ten play and before we get to March. But by March, we'll be okay. So that's that. I hope they surprise all of us, and I hope they go out there and have an undefeated season. I really do. I hope that they surprise everybody and they go beat UCLA like we did last year. But I don't know. I'm just telling people, just don't have that expectation, right? Because if you have that expectation and they lose, then you're going to come on Twitter and start bashing the team and bashing folks when you don't have to do that.
Yeah, let me just quickly interject that, like, we shouldn't expect this team to be a number one seed. All right, like this is not that kind of team.
But they might be. You never know, because they didn't expect the Ivies team to be a number one seed either. And what happened in March? They were a surprise number one seed. So I'm just saying, just don't have your expectations. Don't compare this year's team to last year's team and have those expectations. Let yourself be surprised. Let yourself be joyful with the positive things that this team is going to bring to the table and still support this team. That's all I'm saying.
All right. So once again, as we close down our show, Cece and I will have a North Carolina State preview. We know you want that. We know you expect that. We're going to deliver that for you. So rest assured, we will dig into that game as we move forward with the season, but it's underway. We're talking ball. It's not just speculation. We now have actual games to break down. So continue to get on over to CC's USC women's basketball media lab, your one-stop shop for analytics, videos, interviews, all sorts of analysis and information. Make that your daily women's college basketball companion. You're going to be a smarter, more educated fan if you go to the USC Women's Basketball Media Lab on a daily basis this season. Any last words, CC, before we close?
That reminds me, you can go on that website and click on stats, and you can see the ESPN, the game stats of the game, the box scores. You can break it down, you see that. Or you can go on the players tab and click on a player and see their individual stats provided by her hoop stats. So just like Matt said, a one-stop shop. You don't have to go to all these different websites to look at what you need to look at. You can get it all on my website. So do that. And on game day, if you're driving and you can't get to the game and you want to listen to it, you can also pull up my website, and I have the ESPN link when Eli is calling the games for USC, ESPN LA. That link is there as well. So one-stop shop. I've been saying that I'm going to get some merch on there pretty soon, but I think I need a partner in crime to help me get this stuff going because it's just busy.
Well, JuJu Watkins isn't playing. No, just kidding. But yeah, no, we can all use the help. It's my busiest time of year too, because I'm covering USC football, I'm covering the men's, I'm covering women's basketball. Like I'm wearing 3 hats right now. So hugely busy for me, hugely busy for you, CC, but it's fun. Like this is great work. It's work that we love doing because we're passionate about USC women's basketball. All right, so North Carolina State preview coming your way soon. But for this episode, thanks for watching and listening. For CC Clay, I'm Matt Zemek. Thanks for watching and listening to Trojans Wired. We'll see you next time for that NC State preview. Fight on.
Fight on.